they were they were driving around in my car using the blue light to pull people over and then robbing them.
Welcome to Achieving Failure, a podcast that gives you a break from politics, popular trends, and just brings you good old life stories and adventures. I'm your host, Chris, and join us each week as my friends and I reminisce over stories who made us who we are. And now on to the show.
Yeah, so to start this off, like my family's got a whole category of things that can only happen to Mike. Like this is if the wonky, most ridiculous combination of shit's gonna happen, it's gonna happen to me. So the next 12 weeks were interesting. So then I report down to Virginia Beach and I get myself a place to live and I check in at the schoolhouse and I start training to be an intel officer. Awesome. At the time, I loved the apartment that I was in, but the Hampton Roads area is a very shady area in general. There's not like a good part of town, at least not that I ever found. Between Virginia Beach and Norfolk to Portsmouth, the whole area is just inundated with about 60,000. It's a fleet concentration area. So there's like 60,000 sailors, and the public has no respect, if anything, dealing with military personnel is an inconvenience. But it's also shady as hell because there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of destitution, there's a lot of bullshit. So I have a neighbor literally across the hall from me, and their son is a little younger than I am. I think he was 19 or 20 at the time. We start becoming friends, and he's got one of his friends that comes by a lot. Like, they would hang out at my apartment. We would play video games. They were younger than me, so they weren't drinking, but I would drink. We would chit-chat. We would bullshit. Be a good time. Periodically, it was not uncommon that, especially if I had been drinking late in the evening, I would say, like, hey, if you're going to run out real quick, go and scoop me up a pack of cigarettes. This one day, he didn't have a car. This is not my neighbor's friend, who, it's kind of like you and me, like not blood cousins, but they were functionally cousins. So and no reason this kid has ever given me to not trust him. He's, 20, but I have the keys to my car. I'm like, hey, just run out, grab a pack of cigarettes for me, get a pack of cigarettes for you, and then come back. Time goes by, and I don't hear from him. I'm aggravated and a little tipsy. I put myself to bed. I wake up, my car's still not there. I knock on my neighbor's door. Hey, Yuri, where's your cousin with my car? He doesn't know. His family doesn't know. As it turns out, earlier, maybe a month earlier, this is a closed complex. But we had somebody that we think was living in the complex that was just breaking into cars. Like, literally going and jiggling the handles of every car in the parking lot to try to find one that was unlocked. And I had, like, a ton of shit just ripped out of my car one day. I mean, it was like I had a mag light in there. I had a stickball bat. I had an emergency kit that had, like, reflective triangles, a flashlight, a tow rope, that kind of stuff. So the crime in the area was already a problem. And I always had my car locked after that. But it turns out that when I gave this kid my keys, he went over and scooped up a different friend or cousin or family member, whatever, and then two other people. And having been an EMT, I had an emergency blue light in my car. So the difference between Virginia and New Jersey is, in New Jersey, usually red lights are for cops. Blue lights are for EMS and fire. In Virginia, pretty much everybody uses blue lights. So they were they were driving around in my car using the blue light to pull people over and then robbing them.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like, and brandishing weapons. Because, I mean, in my trunk, I had, like, 2 machetes. I had the stickball bat. I mean, I had other stuff. Like, I had a whole bunch of tools in my trunk. So like I had bolt cutters, I had a hatchet, I had tools in my trunk, and they were using them to like brandishing weapons and robbing people as they would pull them over in my fucking 2002 Hyundai Sonata.
That's insane. Because yeah, I would think like, hey, I'm driving down the road, I see lights flashing behind me. Obviously, your first instinct would be, oh, it's the cops. Let me pull over. Did I do something wrong? And next thing you know is there's somebody showing up on the side of your car. I'm thinking it's a cop, but I mean, if he's showing up with a hammer, bolt cutters, or a machete, it's like, ugh.
Bolt cutter, knife, machete, whatever I had in the back, whatever tools, a crowbar, whatever I had in the back.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were basically showing up and they would like flank the car to be able to like create this intimidating presence. And naturally, that was never going to be a long lived thing.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they were able to kind of pull like 4 people over. But the way the Hampton Roads is, the boundaries are really interesting because there's a lot of counties that overlap in areas or their borders are like really close to where I was living. So I had both Virginia Beach and Chesapeake County involved in this police chase.
Oh, there was a chase on top of it. On top of.
So all of these people that they were pulling over would call 911, and then now there was this search for my car on the road to try to find where the fuck my car was that was pulling these people over.
Jesus.
I don't know any of this. Like, I go to bed and I'm pissed off and I don't know where my car is. So, neighbor doesn't know where my car is. So I call up the police department. I'm like, hey, I don't know where my car is. Think it might have been stolen. Can you run the plates for me? They run the plates and they're like, oh no, we have your car. It's at the police impound. I'm like, oh really?
I mean, that's a plus. At least you have some sort of accountability for your car. Like, oh, thanks for knowing where it is.
Yeah, I'm like, oh really? And then I was like, well, what's it doing there? And then they're like, we're going to have a detective call you. I was like, so that's not good. So now this is in the middle of my Intel school. So I have to call my office, the quarterdeck, and I tell them, like, so I'm not going to be in today because my car was stolen last night and I'm kind of dealing with that. And it ended up being a process of like 2-3 days I was out of classes, whatever. Because I had to go and then get a taxi because Uber wasn't really a big thing yet. This is 2012. I get a taxi over to the Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I rent a car, and then as I'm dealing with the police department and everything else, I'm like, okay, so they have your car, and we could release it to you, but we have to wait till Chesapeake executes their search warrant. Because they crossed jurisdictions, I had to wait for 4 different police departments to execute their search warrants.
Nice.
So now I'm like 2 months in this rental car. It's almost $3,000 out of pocket. The very first time in my life that I've ever had a comma in my bank account is just gone. Like my entire cushion, all of the money I had saved is now $3,000 I've spent on a rental car while I'm waiting for police departments to execute the search warrant, let alone getting my, flashing light back, let alone getting any of the weapons or tools that they used in aggressive, threatening, or intimidating manners. And, they all ended up getting arrested because obviously the police had my car, so they got arrested. But that was, so I go in and I'm back at the schoolhouse. This is probably like a week or 2 after. And I get called into the department head of the training division's office. And like, so you've been out of class a lot. I sure have. Like, no denying it. Like, yep, that's a fair statement. They're like, so what happened? And I was like, well, here's all of the things that happened. And the car was used in the commission of 4 felonies in 2 different counties. And I've had issues with the rental car. And I've had to go back and forth and all of this other stuff. And I'll never forget. I don't remember his name, but this lieutenant commander just kind of looks at me and goes, "Well, I guess all of those things could happen." I'm like, "What the fuck do you mean could happen? That's what fucking happened." Now, granted, it could only happen to me, but still, like, this is reality now. Now, that's tip of the iceberg there. Cut a year and a half later, that same car, the Hyundai Sonata, gets rear-ended as I'm pulling into a parking lot.
Nice.
Frame damage. It is totaled. I'm still driving on it because the insurance appraiser hadn't told me it's totaled yet, but it's frame damage. So I think the car wasn't worth that much. It was a piece of shit to begin with. So I got a new rental car. Now this is about January, the second week of January. I'm moving stuff out of my apartment to get ready to deploy. And now I'm doing all of that in a rental car. It's like 3 days before I deploy now. And I'm driving my cable boxes back to the cable provider. I think it was Verizon at the time. I don't remember. And I get T-boned in the rental car.
So you're getting T-boned again.
Yeah, I mean, I got rear-ended. Now I'm getting...
I'm sorry. Now you're getting T-boned. Now you're getting rear-ended. So now...
This is like 2 weeks later. So I've now totaled 2 cars in 2 weeks. And I'm deploying 3 days later for 9 months.
Nice.
So I finally, I end up with a minivan to finish my pack out and end up we deployed on Valentine's Day 2014. But yeah, that was my history with my fucking Hyundai. That I hated that car to begin with, but yeah, that's kind of how that worked out. But it literally falls into the category of shit that only can happen to Mike. Now, jump ahead. I've been in the Navy 11 years now. That was 2014 when I totaled those 2 cars in 2 weeks. It's 2023 now, so 9 years. 2 weeks ago, well, I guess a little more than 2 weeks ago, about a month ago, I had a massive blowout. A massive blowout just a couple of miles from my house on the highway at speed. The amount of damage to the tire alone was remarkable, but it had punched through the wheel well and like fucked up all the wiring and all kinds of shit.
But now here's the thing. It's a different location now. Now you're living in downtown San Diego.
Yeah, now I'm in San Diego.
So, new location. You move from East Coast to West Coast.
San Diego, like 2 months.
And this problem has followed you because why not?
Because it can only happen to me. It blows out, it fucks up the wheel. I get quoted $12,000 for repairs.
Wait, hold on. $12,000?
Tire, it blew through the wheel well, so you need to replace that. It blew through the wiring looms that both feed the front and back of the car. So it was fucking up lights in the back of the car. It was fucking up lights in the front of the car. It was fucking up the lane assist sensors. It fucked up the front-facing camera. I mean, it literally ripped everything. They needed to do new mountings on the fuse box. That's how bad this was. Like, and I'll send you pictures and we can put it up there for the listeners to see. But I'm surprised they didn't somersault the goddamn car. So they put me into a Honda Ridgeline. Not a common rental that you would get, but that's what they had available. So they put me on a Honda Ridgeline, and I'm driving around this for a couple of weeks while I'm waiting for my car to get repaired and waiting for insurance to send the claims adjuster out to prove it, sign the check for the dealership to then order the parts to do the repairs, which evidently only came in last Friday. So I might be able to get my car at the end of this week. But now, February 17th, so about 2.5 weeks ago, February 17th is my birthday. I had work all day, and then I had to go to a staff meeting at the martial arts school I teach at. I left there, and I popped downtown for a couple of hours. By the time I got downtown, it was already like 9 o'clock. So I'm hanging out, I'm watching some musicians, I'm having, random conversations with strangers and people, and like, I mean, it's just genuinely a good time. And like, all right, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like 1:50 in the morning. It's time to go home. So I grab my car, and I start working my way home. I am now 8 blocks from home, and I get rear-ended in the ridge line. And I don't get just rear-ended in the ridge line. I mean, this guy drove into me so fast, his car is completely fucked. Like, airbags deployed, crumple zones, like the whole front end of his car is just gone. But now I'm in a rental car. So this is all happening again. I'm waiting to find out at what point Enterprise is going to stop renting to me.
Yeah, you're gonna be on the. You're gonna kind of be blackballed. Like, no longer rent to this guy. He's more of a liability. So no.
One of my friends was like, "You gotta take the fucking magnets out of your bumpers." But yeah, so 9 years later, the same shit. I totaled 2 cars in 2 weeks in 2014, and now I fuck up 2 cars in 2 weeks in 2023. This is my perpetual life. Now, that said, the guy that hit me did get arrested for DUI. I have the police report. I was not at fault. I wasn't at fault when I got T-boned either. Maybe I'm just a fucking attraction for bad luck, but this is the shit that can only happen to Mike.
Could it be it's just you? Could you just be the problem?
Oh, no, I'm certain it is. I am a force of chaos in the universe. Like, if the crazy thing's going to happen, it's going to happen to me.
Hey, it's Chris again. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Come back each week as we dive headfirst into more misadventures. Find us on social media, and if you have a story you'd love to share, shoot us an email at aflvpodcast@gmail.com. That's AF, Achieving Failure, LV, Las Vegas, podcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week.